Hello, everybody. My name is Ashok Mathur, and I'm the Dean of the School of Graduate Studies. And I just thought I'd prepare a little video intro to talk about supervising graduate students. I know many of you are new to the field, and I just wanted to help you out a little bit on what this is all about. If you have any questions, of course, you can talk to the program directors for your particular graduate programs, or to our office at SGS, or, of course, to me. So at OCAD, we have 6 graduate programs. There are 3 that are thesis-based. That's the interdisciplinary art, media, and design, digital futures, and criticism and curatorial practice. And we also have 2 MRP, or major research project or paper programs, that are strategic foresight and innovation and inclusive design. As well, we have one that's fully course-based, which doesn't require supervision, but it's doing it through capstone projects within it, and that's Design for Health. For the thesis programs, the three thesis programs I mentioned, we have a principal advisor and a secondary advisor. And for the MRP programs, we have a principal advisor only. And I'll go through that in just a moment as well. So the first question that many people have when they're asked to supervise is, what is a thesis at OCAD U? Normally, and I say normally because there are exceptions, it's a maker project. That is, it involves a solo exhibition, performance or a series of performances, creating and displaying prototypes, or any other sort of creative project. It's a significant body of work that's usually exhibited or presented at the end of term, and then the student does a defense from that. It also has a written component that functions as a support paper. It can include things like a lit review, the theory that a student has used to produce the work, the methods they're using, and it explicates their practice and what they've done to make this work. It's very important that we talk about the thesis as being both the project and the written component. There's a temptation to talk about the thesis as just the written component. It's not. The thesis is the entire body of work that's being produced. An MRP, on the other hand, is considered a major paper or project depending on the program, depending on the student. It can include things like prototypes. It can involve creative and critical output as well, but it doesn't have the kind of finished project at the end that's like an exhibition or a performance and that type of thing. It does include a written component. Within it, it's very similar to the thesis. It has a lit review, theory, and methods. It's supervised, though, by a solo PA, and there's no committee or defense. So this is common in the sector to have an MRP. It's more like a course-based program, but it's being supervised in a particular way. And as we change our models, we're having more of this happen, and it's a fluid model to make sure that students get the advice they need without going into a full-on thesis mode. The role of the principal advisor in both the thesis and the MRP is primarily there to support the student. I often say that we're working with the students, very mature, very highly accomplished students. They have a concept, they need some help in guiding them toward it. What we generally do as a principal advisor is to meet, to advise on process. When I say meet, it's occasional or irregular. Sometimes people like to have them more scheduled, but it's not the same as doing a major course with somebody. You're not spending weeks and weeks with them. You're spending a time with them to see what introduce them to some ideas and see what they need as they move forward. It troubleshoots the making and writing projects. You may be spending time in their studio, maybe spending time looking at their writing. And it also is important that you oversee the REB, that is the Research Ethics Board's, the ethics application, when it's required. I'll get to that in a moment as well. Finally, it supports through the defense and revision. So the committee will have a defense. We're starting to call these more conversations because by the time the student gets there, they're pretty much complete. And we have an external examiner come in as well. And then the student does some minor revisions, often including the work they've done during the term for their exhibition or presentation inside that, because they haven't had a chance to do that sometimes until the end. The supervision of the Maker project, like I said, studio visits. It's a notion of concept realization. It's bouncing ideas back and forth. How can we help the student produce the work? It's what I often talk about as becoming more of who they are. It involves critique, suggestions. It's actually an incredibly enjoyable and productive process, and most of the people I've known who've done PA work really enjoy it, and they set up lifelong relationships with students who are doing amazing amounts of work in the world. The supervision of the written component Keep in mind that SGS does have a writing consultant, and we do workshops. You're not on your own on this. If writing's not something you enjoy or profess to do a lot, we have assistance in problem solving around that. Students do a lot of peer-to-peer work as well. The CLT also has supports that it generously provides. Students have access to that. But overall, the supervisor, the PA, is responsible for the final approval and overseeing revisions. So that means you take the presentation, take it to defense. When there are revisions that are suggested, you help the student move them through, and then it gets taken up and finalized. Research ethics is very important. It's required for work involving human subjects. When you're using data from human subjects, an example of that is if you have some sort of case study and you're working with a group of say, students that you are wanting to get information from that's going to be used in your final project, then you need an RAB. You do not need an RAB if you are, say, you're presenting a particular body of painting and you're not talking to people, you're not using data. The REB is important. If you have any doubts, talk to us in our office. We can tell you, guide you in that. The REB is very important, and it's a really valuable process if people are seeking data from outside using human subjects. The student needs to complete the REB on a Romeo program we have called Romeo. It's a little bit complicated, but you can get help from that from our office and elsewhere. And it's important that the supervisor is the principal applicant. It's a bit confusing when you look at it. They're actually the applicant, and they're working with the student on their project. And finally, the supervisor does sign off and assist in revisions on that. It usually goes to the REB and comes back at least once with some minor corrections. And it's something that ensures that the subjects that we're working with are kept safe. In the summer, the first summer, as you're being appointed for RPA, it's important, I think, to consult with the GPD on parameters. So if you're working with IMD, you would talk to the GPD for IMD, that type of thing, just to make sure you're registering the same interests and you're paralleling what people are doing. I always suggest you initially meet with the student, support of the student through the term. So you meet with them when they need to. I tend not to set up regular meetings. I meet with a student, see what they're doing, connect with them on email, see if they need to have a phone check-in, see what they're doing in their studio. The summer is a really good time to help initiate the REB if that's required for the student. So rather than wait till the fall, I'd say by August, if you can get that REB at least submitted, it's a really good plan. And basically at the end of that first summer, what you're trying to do is get the student to a place where they have an active proposal or an initial work review, so they know where their feet are landing when they start up again in September, and that prepares them for the student for the 4th and 5th semesters. And finally, the role of secondary advisors. This is only for the thesis, for thesis students. They tend to support the primary and the student. Often they'll come in with expertise that the primary doesn't feel they have, or they're bringing in knowledge that the student requires. The secondary often meets with the PA and student, sometimes together at an initial stage, often not until after the summer, sometimes depending on how you work during the summer, but usually certainly kicks in around the fall. It's not as onerous as the PA role, so you're meeting to complement them in a sense. You'll help with their writing, you can help with their project and their practice, but it's more or less a consulting role. You'll also build on the PA recommendations. I like the idea where a PA says, move it in this particular direction, and then the secondary can look at it and say, in this particular direction, you can look at X, Y, or Z. Again, bringing in expertise and a balance to that relationship with the supervisor. And finally, you sit on the defense committee and have the defense with the external. And that is essentially it. I know it's a bit of a whirlwind thing. If people have questions, they can always check in with us, but I wanted to give you just an overview. And to finally say, supervising graduate students is one of the greatest pleasures at this place. You won't believe the capacity they bring in and the delight they bring in and what they are doing for our school and for ourselves and when we're working with them. So that's all I have to say. Good luck with everything, and I'll talk to everybody at sometime in the future.